Hi guys, welcome back. So I wanted to explain to you an exhibition, an exciting opportunity that I have been published into a monthly newsletter from a artist group called Collect Art. These are actually based in Georgia, however it is open to the world, and I wanted to basically sit down and tell you about it because for one I'm also included in it, but there's several other artists that are included in it, and it actually goes live on the 1st of November, and I will leave a link in the comment section below for you guys to check it out as well if you want to have a look and have a educational reading maybe. So the whole point of the publishing is to submit 2 to 6 artworks that are involved with sculpture. Because of my university, my final year in university, I actually concentrated a lot on sculpture, whereas before I was much more into the print and drawing kind of sector. Because I had that amount of space and the freedom to just do what I want in the 3rd year, I suddenly ended up in sculpture. Now, I did touch upon it in my 2nd year for a couple of projects, but it wasn't very prominent and it wasn't as dramatic, let's say, than the 3rd year, because the 3rd year sculptures were quite big. Like one of them you could physically walk through because they were about 3 to 4 meters long. So what I'm going to do is that I'll leave a link to all the artworks that I'm going to mention quite shortly in my description box. It will just be a link to my website where you can see them all. It's because I physically don't have them here, and some of them were dismantled at the end of the exhibition because they were built just for that exhibition. However, that does not stifle the quality or the fact that what they did worked for me for that exhibition at that time. But I did take photographs of it, so it's still very raw and it still has that effect and memory that I have that I call an artwork. So the first one is actually one of my most popular ones, that it was kind of the turning point of my 3rd year. It's called Figure 1 and I actually do have it in my parents' backyard still. Even though it was kind of a finished piece, I quite like the idea of it still eroding out in the natural elements. My parents have actually filled it with plants, which is fabulous because I always love the idea of a man-made object becoming very organic, and that for me was the whole part of this sculpture. How I built it was I got 4 MDF boards and created a large tool box, filled it all with plaster and a bit of polystyrene, and then I pulled it out, I cut it into segments, and then I carved out kind of I want to say cone shape, a bit like a peak shape, should we say. Filled it back with plaster, took the casing off, and then I started carving out of it. And for me was to try and to expose those marks that from the first pour, the second pour, and to get rid of some of the polystyrene, because the polystyrene left this really lovely textured bumpy surface on the outside, which was so pleasant to touch. It was just unreal. What was really nice about plaster is that it made this off-white colour, so it looked man-made, but it was made out of an organic material. Not completely organic, but it's more organic than, let's say, concrete, should we say. And the whole exhibition was the fact that it was quite pure and you can see the process of it. So I kind of just left it in the exhibition to stand by itself, but it was complemented on either side by collages that I'd done with ripped up pieces of paper, as well as my larger piece, which was a lion figure. That artwork was created in 2018, like I said, the final year of my exhibition in university, and I was very, very happy with it. Honestly, that was my peak of my artist career, and I just thought things will get better than this, and I will get used to the fact that I can exhibit everywhere. I'll get picked up and I won't have to work for anyone anymore. The next piece that I entered was called Triptych. It is actually 3 tiny little small plaster casts of wood chippings from my back garden, as well as Somerset Forest, which is where I used to live back in the southwest. These were created in 2019 and they are still very alluring, and they remind me very much of, you know, the terracotta armies that they have in exhibitions where they have them just all lined up. This was the year after I left university, and it was the year that I went full time. Because my space was quite small and money was an issue, I found that making these artworks meant that I had to be careful of what I was spending my money on, and I think that's why the scale went from such a massive size down to little pieces that were like 25 centimetres big, and the casting moulds were made out of cardboard which was fabulous because it felt personal, but it still had the same effect as a large scale piece. Not to say that my other large scale piece was not worthy of anything, but it was, that scale was for a reason, whereas this one was for a reason as well. It wasn't using the scale to hype up the artwork, it was using its scale because it happened to be in that size and I could translate it successfully from point A to point B. The next artwork is called Untitled. I didn't know what to call it because I didn't want to name it and then they just think, oh, it's of a place, because it's not. It was just me digging out another plaster area object. I think that's the easiest way to have it. There was like a spare box that I just filled with plaster and then just used clay to mould bits and pieces of it together. This one was created in 2017, so just shy of 2 years. It was in my second year, and this is when the plaster became very heavily involved within my art practice. I still didn't know quite what was going on with it. I didn't know where it was going to lead or how far I was going to take it, but it was very much there and I just could not ignore it. I kept going back to the same medium and I didn't know why, which was quite a nice feeling, because one of my college teachers told me, if you keep going back to a medium, you haven't finished with it, and I quite like that. So this next artwork was actually formed by someone leaving a leftover box of polystyrene, basically, and it's a smaller version of figure 1 because this is what I did before figure 1, before I realised, oh, maybe I just need to upscale this for it to be more organic and fearful. This one is called Composition, and as you can tell from the pictures, I went a bit ballistic with all the polystyrene. It was literally just a polystyrene box and I just filled it with plaster. I did have to cut it in half, which is where you can see the horizontal line, the vertical line, sorry, running through it. But that, for me, just creates this settling point where you can see the rawness of it. And the fact that it's not straight, it's leaning, makes it more organic than any other sculpture that I've pretty much done up until this point. The next piece is another untitled piece because, once again, I didn't know what to call it. This sculpture was actually made of broken windscreen glass. It was brought in by another artist called Jo Wood. If anyone wants you to check her out, she does these amazing paintings when we were back at university, and I still believe she still paints now. Again, I did a cast of a smaller plaster block, carved it out, and used these bits of glass to fill it, and then we put it in the kiln and it created this beautiful emerald, smooth but sharp sculpture piece that just, it didn't completely take in all the marks, but it was dull enough to know what it is, like it had almost been damaged by time, but the sculpture and the shape of it was still there, which I found absolutely stunning. And it was such a nice little piece to hold because it was quite heavy for such a small piece as well, which added to me the quality of it. Last but certainly not least is another sculpture. No way. It is a plaster sculpture of a rotting bit of wood. Now, I actually have the video of this casting on my channel still, so I'll leave it in the comment section. I'll leave it in the description box. It was actually one of the first videos that I did outside of uni, after I decided to take up YouTube as a form of keeping my routine in check for making sure that I do artwork, basically. it was the starting point for me to be making the triptych 3 little plaster blocks, which I actually ended into an exhibition. What was so nice about the rotting wood was that I could just pour plaster straight onto it, let it set, let it dry for a couple of days, and then because the wood was so rotten, I could literally just tease it out. I spent days with a pair of like tweezers just peeling out all the little bits of wood. It was so satisfying to do. It still left like little marks of dirt and weird bits of material in between that I actually caused a little bit of the colour of plaster to change, which for me was kind of the same effect that figure 1 had, that I wanted for figure 1. There's also a really nice piece where it's just solid plaster, the very top where I've literally just filled it, and it's very smooth, and then it gets into the little nibbly bits of the actual wood, and that contrast of the smoothness going into this depth of filled of plaster of the wood is what makes the whole artwork, because it's so smooth and interesting that I just love the composition and the contrast between the two. I haven't yet found another piece of wood that has been able to rectify this, because they're all completely different, but it needs a certain atmosphere for it to be able to demonstrate this kind of surface, because if it's too wet and you pour plaster on it, it's just gonna melt through. That could be exciting, but again, it's not what I wanted. And then if it's too soft, you would have to physically chisel it out, which could damage the plaster that you've just cast into it. I think that's why I took the triptych sculptures, and instead of making the whole thing a piece of it, I just kind of slotted it in, so when I took it out it left marks, so it was more of an impression rather than the whole piece, if that made sense. So that's it. That is all the artworks that I've submitted. I hope you guys have not been bored to death with me trying to explain to you different bits and pieces of my sculpture pieces. And I hope it does make sense. Like I said, please do check them out in the description box as well, because it is very important to me to keep on being an artist, because honestly, without art, I don't know what I'll do. This is literally my life, and it's the only thing I want to do with my life, other than look after her. If you guys have any questions, please leave in the comment section below. Like I said, I'll leave a link to the publishing in the description box, so please do check that out and share, do all the above. And also don't forget to check out all the other artists that are going to be featuring in this publication, because they are going to be amazing. No one really gets into the online exhibitions unless their artwork is really good and high quality as well. So we do need to appreciate other artists as well, because it's not always about me. There are millions of other artists, there are thousands of other artists for a reason, because not everyone's going to like your artwork, because it is a very varied industry. But until then, please like and subscribe to my channel to see more videos like this, and don't forget to check out my links to all my social medias in my eBay selling account, where you will find all my artworks for sale, including the ones that I've mentioned today, plus a couple of extras on my channel and a couple of other ones that I haven't actually filmed for myself. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I shall see you guys next time. Bye!